What's up, Lions of Liberty fans? You can now support this show on Patreon and get exclusive access to bonus audio and video content, including Conspiracy Corner, Degenerate Gamblers, bonus segments with guests, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. And I don't care if you're a felon, or a friend, or a freedom lover, or maybe you're all three, the trifecta. Which, if you're all three, then you are definitely in the right place, even if you fit none of those categories. Maybe you're just my enemy, and you're still listening. Great, welcome. Hopefully you pick something up today and learn about some injustice in the criminal justice system. Felony Friday is one of three other shows we have here on Lions of Liberty. I could talk about the other three shows, but I'm only going to talk about one of them, because that's really all that matters right now. Yesterday's show, so if you're listening to this on Friday, the 26th of October, on the 25th of October, I did a show with Larry Sharp, our Candidates of Liberty show. If you missed that, go back and check it out. You can go to the show notes page at lionsofliberty.com/COL14, or you can just go to your podcast feed and look back one episode. Great episode with Larry Sharp. We talked about his campaign, lots of different things, the issue with debates, him trying to get in debates, and we talked about his appearance on Joe Rogan. So if you missed that one, take a step back in your feed after listening to this episode, of course, and check out the last Candidates of Liberty episode with Larry Sharp. Okay, this episode of Felony Friday is episode 147. That means the show notes page for this show can be found at lionsofliberty.com/FF147. Got another great guest today, another great felon who has overcome a lot of adversity. Let's hear his story. My guest today on Felony Friday is Michael Monsivais. Michael grew up in an environment where he was surrounded by drugs. He grew up in a tough neighborhood, and as he was growing up, he spent time in and out of jail, even as a juvenile. And in an effort to turn his life around, he met a mentor who introduced him to welding. And within a year, he was having success. He joined a union. He was on various building projects. He was doing very well. And then in 2007, the economy crashed. And this sent Michael back into his old ways, back into the drug trade. This got him arrested again and landed him with a 130-month sentence. So while in prison, Michael did suffer a couple different abusive and violent things that happened with prison guards that we're going to get into as well. But also while in prison, Michael did some pretty incredible things with helping to start a welding program for inmates to help to reduce recidivism. He's currently in a halfway house, and I think he gets out in a few weeks here. So, Michael, welcome to Felony Friday.
Hey, thank you, John, for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. You know, I know that you got a lot going on. You're working to get out of that halfway house and get back into society, and you know, I'm sure you're going to contribute and add value and continue doing what you've been doing while you've been in prison. So, with my guests, what I like to do is so everyone gets not everyone listening has read about you and has this background knowledge that I have. So, just give people an idea of what your life was like growing up. I know I talked about in the intro there how you were surrounded by drugs, and it was a really tough neighborhood. Just give people a taste for what your environment was like during your youth.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Southern California. It was rampant with drugs and the gangs. I grew up around this violence and stuff. I grew up in a broken home. The parents were abusing drugs, and there was, domestic violence and stuff like that in the house. So because of this, unhealthy environment as a youngster, I took to the streets because I wanted to get away from it. So I started hanging out with some of these guys in the neighborhood, and I became attracted to the lifestyle. You know, my role models were gangsters and thugs and drug dealers. So, you know, I kind of wanted to be like them. And so hanging out with them, you know, I just got entangled in that web of drugs and violence and, you know, the street life. And that became my addiction. So because of those choices that I made, you know, I spent a lot of time incarcerated, you know, going through juvenile hall, California Youth Authority, county jail, state prison. And on this last one, I went through the federal system. You know, I was young, I was immature. I didn't, you know, develop, you know, the way a normal kid should develop. So it took me a lot longer to mature and realize what it really is that I wanted in life. And so because of my mistakes, like I said, I spent a lot of time in jail. But as I became older and maturity started catching up with me, I realized that this wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. I didn't want to end up dead like a lot of my other friends, or, you know, strung out on drugs like a lot of the other ones. So I started thinking about things that I wanted to do. And as you mentioned to the audience a second ago, a friend of mine introduced me to welding, and it was pretty interesting to me. So I got into it, and I was doing pretty good, and things were going good for a while. And then, you know, that recession hit and things slowed down, and I got laid off. And the only thing other than welding I knew how to do was sell drugs. So as a means to get by during a short period of time that the union said we were going to be down, I just was selling a couple little grams here and there to some friends. And unbeknownst to me, one of them was working for the FBI. And
you know what's,
I got indicted.
Just to jump in for a minute, because doing some research, looking into this interview, if you read, it's crazy how they word stuff in these news articles and how the police say things that they referred to it as this like elaborate. I think they referred to it as, you know, gang activity, and they said it was a violent gang that you were involved with. Is that true at all in any way?
Well, you know, being from the gang is known as a violent street gang, you know, especially back in the day. You know, this is a long time ago. This is when we were kids, you know, that was usually like the last of the violence. Things would calm down and stuff like that. Now, what the FBI loves to do is they just tag the word conspiracy onto any case that they're investigating, and automatically it changes the whole game for them. You know, once they add conspiracy, basically what happened in my case is just some of us friends that grew up together that were from the gang. Most of these guys are like old now and raising their families, but some of them still like to party and get high and stuff like that, or some of them were also struggling. So it was a few grams. It wasn't some elaborate scheme. It wasn't some, you know, big, you know, organized crime situation here. It was just, you know, a couple of small time guys doing a couple of things to get by, or just some of the guys just using, and they hit it with conspiracy, and it changed the whole game. And it's just because we all knew each other that they were able to say that we conspired to distribute and possess, you know, illegal substances. In my case, it was 38 grams of methamphetamine.
And what was the sentence you got from that?
I received a 130-month sentence. They were trying to give me a lot more than that because the reason I got 130, I was looking at 151 to 188 months. The reason I got 130 was because the court, after doing the with the probation, the pre-sentence investigation, they realized that I came from a broken home and nothing about my upbringing was normal or healthy. So the court found mitigating factors based on those circumstances to vary on the sentencing guidelines in my case, which resulted in 130-month sentence, which is still 10 years, 10 months for 38 grams of methamphetamine.
Yeah, and you ended up serving the entire thing, it seems like, right?
Almost, yeah. I served eight years out of that 10 years and 10 months.
So you mentioned before, I guess if we can just backtrack a little bit, before you had this second arrest. So you got involved in welding. You found it interesting. You were making money. What changed your outlook that made you change from looking to make money maybe an easier way, or maybe you can make more money selling drugs, to try to make money welding?
Well, I started, as I was starting to get a little older, I started to see a lot of my friends getting killed out in the streets. I've seen a lot of them dying of overdoses and stuff like that. And I've seen quite a few of my friends get life sentences, in the state. I've seen guys receive life sentences for something as small as overdosing on drugs and then getting brought back to life. And then because they found the paraphernalia when they resuscitated them, they struck them out on a felony for paraphernalia. So I realized that, I'd rolled the dice long enough in my life and that this was not the kind of life I wanted. I didn't want to be spending the rest of my life in prison. So I needed to come up with something quick. So I thought welding was a pretty cool trade. It's a, pretty, badass trade, as you will, for somebody coming from the streets. And it pays a lot of money. And the good thing about being a welder and being in the union, because I'm a union welder, was the fact that the unions do not discriminate on an individual's past, troubled history. So I was able to get into the union and go through the apprenticeship program, and I was making some pretty good money until that recession messed me up, and then I made the poor decision to resorting back to that old way of making money. That was my mistake.
I want to come back to the welding to talk about the program you helped to start. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about your time in prison during this latest stint in an event that happened in I think June of 2017, where actually maybe just take me through this. The event I'm curious about is with these flashbang grenades, and I think you were injured from them, right?
Yeah. So when I got sentenced, I was eventually transferred to it's called the United States Penitentiary at Lompoc, which is a high security facility. However, even though it's still named that, it's now considered a medium security facility, but it's still ran as a penitentiary. So there I started that welding program and a bunch of other programs that I started from scratch, and was doing a lot of good things there. Eventually I got transferred to the low facility 5 years later to go take the residential drug abuse program at the end of my sentence. So I'm getting ready to go home. I'm at the end of my drug program. And on June 21st, 2017, there was a small, I guess you could say, a small scale fight or a small scale riot that occurred outside of the building I was housed in, between, Hispanics and Black individuals. I don't know the specific details of how it all started or whatever, but they were fighting outside for about maybe 10 minutes. The correctional officers at Lompoc responded and were quickly able to get the situation under control. Approximately 45 minutes after the last of the 10 minutes or 15 minutes of fighting, the officers then came to the drug abuse program building, K-Dorm, and opened the door and gave instructions for everyone in the building to get to their bunks, assigned bunk areas, and get on the ground. Everybody complied. As soon as we started getting down, several flashbang grenade type devices came flying through the door. I estimated to be 6 grenades. 2 of them landed immediately next to me, which caused severe injuries to my left leg and my left arm and part of my side. These blasts were so powerful that it completely shredded the sweatpants off of my legs, burning the skin, tearing pieces of deep gashes into my leg. They came in, they handcuffed everybody, and then I was taken to the secure housing unit, placed under what they called investigation. And 71 days later, I was released and cleared of any wrongdoing. And
just back up for a minute. So, did you even receive medical treatment of any kind?
Very minimal medical treatment. They came in, they gauzed me up, basically put some ointment on my injuries, and then carted me off to the secure housing unit, and was left in there for 71 days. Well, they took pictures and video that I've been fighting for these pictures and videos and for all the records that the BOP investigators obtained during the course of their investigation to prove that these officers maliciously and vindictively applied this force amongst a peaceful and compliant dormitory in retaliation for what had happened outside. Basically, their mindset, coming from some of their comments, was, you guys want to act up, we're going to show you guys who's in charge here. So the captain and the AW, who were the ranking officials that I seen through the door, because my bunk was the first bunk next to the entrance of K-Dorm, they had instructed people as I mentioned, that to get to your bunks and get on the ground. When I was in the SHU the next day, them and the warden made rounds, and I asked them, why did they do this? The captain had told me straight out, somebody had flipped them off when he gave instructions to go to their bed. He indicated it was a white Caucasian, and that is why they reacted the way they reacted. I have several declarations and documents from witnesses in the dorm who would testify that immediately after the grenades had went off and they came in the building, they went seeking this individual, stating, where's that freaking cracker at? Found him, and then whooped him in front of everybody right there in the dormitory. And we're laughing now who's so tough, and remarks like that. So these guys were completely out of control that night. And it was just to get some get back. And this happened throughout the institution. This didn't only happen in K-Dorm. This happened in other dormitories throughout the institution, where these officers just ran rampant, blowing out windows, throwing grenades in every building. And mind you, this is 45 minutes after the fighting, in a building that is surrounded by windows, so they can clearly see for 45 minutes that nothing was going on inside. The building officer in charge never called for any assistance, so there was no imminent threat. There was no need to react in this manner.
You just mentioned that people. So there was an investigation done by whom? By the.
Well, themselves. So of course they're not going to find themselves guilty of any excessive force and stuff like this. So there's on the internet, if you just Google FCI Lompoc riot, June 2017, the press release that the Bureau of Prisons gave to the public completely leaves all this out. It says it was a small fight, quickly got under control. Everybody was sent back to the unit. But they're not saying what really happened, and that they took 300 people to the hole. Most of them randomly selected from other buildings that weren't even there. 2 weeks later, after June 21st, about 2 weeks later, they released approximately 200 people from the SHU. 2 weeks later. Supposedly, this is after investigating. They released people who were housed in the immediate location of the fighting and cleared them. I had 5 staff witnesses that night give statements to investigators that I was secured in my building where I was supposed to be, that I was not a participant in any of this situation, that I was injured only by the flashbang grenades that were thrown into the dorm, Nevertheless, I was kept in the SHU for 71 days. I was the last individual to return from the SHU back to general population, despite all of this, despite being known in the facility as, you know, somebody positive and doing all this stuff and creating all these programs. And, you know, there was no question about, you know, the reputation I had established there for almost, about 6 years.
Do you think it had anything to do with how badly you were wounded and they didn't want people to see that?
Exactly. That was my thought while I was sitting in the SHU every week. Well, actually, as soon as they took me to medical that night, I was being seen by, when they were bandaged me up. That's when the Special Investigative Services investigators came, seen me, and started taking pictures and video of my injuries. And I explained to them, as I just mentioned to you, that I was where I was and exactly how it happened. The warden happened to be walking through right when this was being done. And he knew me because of everything, like I said, that I was doing there. And I told him, and he said he'd look into it and not to worry. So I'm thinking, all right, cool, you know, they're gonna take care of it, you know, and I'll be released and, you know, everything will be good. For 71 days, every week, the warden used to walk through the secure housing unit on Wednesdays. Every week, I would ask him, "What's up? Why am I still here? Why isn't anything being done?" And every week, he would tell me, "Just be patient." He told me not to worry, that they're going to take care of it. Well, I was left in there to the very end. When I returned back to the general population, as I mentioned, I was in a drug program. I was at the tail end of it. It was a 9-month drug abuse program. I was 6 months into it. By the time I got back out, my group was transitioning. They were finishing the program, which meant I would have been going home a couple months later. Because I was gone so long, they said I had to restart at the next group, which had just started. So I had to start the drug program all over again because I was gone in the SHU for something I had nothing to do with, injured, which cost me 6 months out of the 12 months of the halfway house that the warden was going to give me based on all the accomplishments that I had already, you know, done throughout the 6 years that I was at SCI or USP and SCI Lompoc.
Yeah, this event didn't happen. This was June 21st, 2017. This is only like 16 months ago when this happened.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to fully heal from everything?
I would say it took a good 4 months. A good 4 months, just for like the scars to for the scars to be healing. I still have scars on my leg and stuff to date, but I'm saying I was bleeding in the SHU for about a month. They would walk every week, and my sheets would be full of blood. I'd be telling them I need to see medical. It's still bleeding, and they wouldn't even come most of the time to give me fresh bandages or anything.
The cannabis industry has rapidly expanded. For those liberty lovers who want to take advantage of this growing industry, they've been met with a flood of government taxes and regulation. A lot of cannabis companies would just love to hire a full-time CFO, but that could be super, super expensive. But what if you could have the knowledge and experience of this full-time CFO at a fraction of the cost? If you're in the cannabis business or you plan on entering the fray, then you need to schedule a free consultation with the Grow CFO, Rachel Kennerly. The Grow CFO will help to maximize cost of goods sold deductions by employing accrual and cost accounting, creating tax savings, and improving cash flow. They will keep your books in an audit-ready state. If you or someone you know is either already in the cannabis industry or thinking about jumping in the fray, go to thegrowcfo.com and schedule a free consultation today. I think it's important to talk about. You mentioned before that you had a good record while you were in there, and you were helping to. I guess you had started this program at that point for welders. So can you talk a little bit about how that came to fruition and what exactly that welding program was?
Okay, so when I first got to USP Lompoc, which is the medium facility, shortly after I was in education department because I was in the process of challenging. I was appealing my sentence because I didn't believe it was a reasonable sentence, and there was a bunch of stuff my attorney didn't do, which could have affected the outcome at the end. So I was in education a lot, and I was asked by education department staff one day, like orientation meeting or whatever, interview, and they asked me what programs I was interested in. Well, I was there just for only a couple of months, but long enough to kind of check things out and see what was available at the prison. So knowing what they had already, I told them, just going along with it, well, what do you have that I could take that I can become certified in a trade or something and be able to return back to the community and make a good living? I already knew they didn't have no accredited programs whatsoever at this prison. So they said a couple classes and stuff, and I asked them if it was accredited and stuff. Of course, they said it was. So you just get a BOP certificate at the end, and that was it. So I told them I wasn't interested in taking any of their programs. They got a little bit snotty with me, and they said, well, what would you like? So I mentioned to them, this is what I do. I'm a union structural welder. I'm certified in this, and this. I'm a certified commercial diver, so I do underwater construction as well. I went to school for welding inspection. I was in school for that at the time of my arrest. So I have a big background in welding. So they said, maybe you should talk to our boss, the supervisor of education, and tell him, about you and what you would like. So one day I just approached him and shared with him everything, showed him my union wages, showed him all my certifications and all the schools I'd been to, and told him, without, just, there's no disrespect to your program here, but I think you guys could be doing better if you start focusing more on trades, because the average guy in prison is an average street level guy. Most of them don't even have a GED or barely got a GED. They're not always, book smart. Of course, you have a lot of intelligent people in prison, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying the average guy coming from the street, he might not have a formal education. So most of these guys are real hands-on types of guys. I mean, you could show somebody something in 5 minutes. They're hands-on, street smart. So welding or the trades basically would be a good way to go, because two, like I mentioned a little while ago, the unions don't discriminate against past criminal history. So they won't never ask you if anyone has a felony record. They're just going to ask you, can you work? Can you show up on time? And can you get the job done? And they got the apprenticeship program to give you the free training once you're into the union. So I shared all this with him, and I showed him the wages. I said, look, a guy barely getting into the union today, zero experience, and back then it was like $16 an hour. I think right now it's like 18 and some change with zero experience to start. And they're going to teach you that trade, through an apprenticeship program, and you get paid, while you're working and all that stuff. So this would be a better way to fulfill the needs of the guys, the average guy here on this yard. So he asked if I could put something together, and I said, sure. So I wrote up a proposal. I wrote up a couple because they wanted a couple of things tweaked here and there. They asked me if I could write a budget up and a plan of operation and eventually curriculums and all that. And so it got sent from the supervisor of education to the warden, to the regional director, and eventually to the director of the Bureau of Prisons in Washington, D.C. The funds and everything I put together got approved. Later, the money came. Me and a hand-selected crew, we built a shop ourselves. I mean, this is a nice shop. And I started teaching it. I was teaching it for a couple years, and I got a lot of guys certified. I was in partnerships with not only my union, but a couple other trade unions here in Southern California that supported the program. So I got it so that I had another event that I started called the Building Trades event, which allowed these representatives from the trades to come into the institution to talk and speak with the students in the programs to offer, resources and stuff. So when they came home, they know they can call this representative in the union and get them in the apprenticeship program in several trades. I had the carpenters union, iron workers, pipe fitters and steam fitters union, plumbers, operator engineers. So all these trades utilize welding and welders. So, it was a great opportunity to even expand the program, even more. So that's what we did. And it's the most successful program to date, and the only one that I believe still at the institution that's accredited nationally. So a guy could take this program in Lompoc, go to New York, and be recognized as a certified American Welding Society welder.
That's awesome. And, it is in such high demand right now. In my day job, I work in oil and natural gas, and there is a tremendous shortage of welders right now. Welders are at the point that you can almost name your price just because the demand is so high. It's crazy, but
they're short. All the baby boomers are retired, and it's phasing out, and there's just not enough welders out there because it went for so many years that the kids we don't want to get our hands dirty, we don't want to get dirty, we don't want to be out there, but it's a good trade where you can make good money without having to spend 6 years in college.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to ask you about, while you were in the halfway house, this is just a couple months ago, I guess, you were able to come in contact with a guy named Scott Budnick, who I guess he was one of the filmmakers who made The Hangover, which is a pretty big movie, and he is involved with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. So, can you just talk a little bit about that meeting and what your goal was with meeting up with him and what came from it?
Well, I spent some time after creating this program looking into other programs that exist here in Southern California to see what people are doing, where the help is and where there isn't help. And I came across Scott Budnick's organization and started reading about it and all the great things that he and his team are doing out there in downtown LA. And of course, they don't discriminate just to downtown LA. Anybody who can get to them, they're willing to help. So I shared the story with Scott, and I know some of the people that he works with or is in communication with. So they kind of just mentioned that, it's a little same circle, reform activists and this, reentry program stuff. So he wanted to meet me. So he said, come on down, and we scheduled an appointment. Went down there and shared with him, the story that was published by Families Against Mandatory Minimum. And the story also that was done by Walt Palvo from Forbes magazine. So he wanted to meet me, and I told him that I wanted to do something like that. I want to start another program out here with welding and try to catch, the at-risk youth guys and ex-offenders coming home that didn't get a chance in there, because there's a lot of places that don't have opportunities like this, and try to give them some hope and some something they can make an honest living, so they can support their families, and just share my story and try to help them from going down the path I went down for so many years. So I shared that with him, and he was real interested in it, and wants me to be a part of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition family. I'm enrolled with them right now. So as soon as I get out of this halfway house, I've been talking with not only the people from ARC, but some other organizations like United Ways, American Welding Society. There's just so many people. Miller Manufacturers. They're one of the biggest welding equipment manufacturers in the United States. So I shared with them my ideas, and everybody's on board. They want to help. They want to donate. They want to do whatever it is that their organizations can do to help make this happen out here, so we can help these people. So as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to be making some moves with these guys. I also just was on a telephone conference with about 5 people from the Charles Koch Institute about maybe a week and a half ago.
Okay.
2 Wednesdays ago. So they also read the stories. They were the president of FAM shared the stories with the people from the Charles Koch Institute, and we set up a conference call with about maybe 5 or 6 of them, and they're interested in my story and interested in my plans, and they've thrown it out there that they would like to see if I would be interested in helping them create similar programs even in other states. So we have another call coming up next month in November. So we're just going to see what happens from there once I get out of this halfway house.
Well, you got a lot of stuff going on. So I got a feeling that in a couple of months, I'm going to probably want to have you back on the show to get an update, because that's some exciting stuff. But, you know, I think you're just giving such a great example of, and there's been sort of a theme. The past few guests I've had, maybe in the last 10, 15 episodes or so, there's been some really great stories like yours. People who have been through the prison system, have experienced, you know, what went right, what went wrong, and are just actively involved applying that to change it, to make it better. And I think that's the only way you fix it. I mean, the only people who could fix the system are people like you who know exactly what needs done. You know the skills people need. You understand how they need trained. So I give you huge props for that.
Thank you, and yeah, that's exactly what I want to do, because when I was a kid and, you know, in elementary school or whatever, junior high, and they had like their intervention people try to come talk to us. These were guys in suits. These were bureaucrats. These were, you know, people in law enforcement. Of course, we didn't relate to them. We didn't respect them because, you know, we just seen so many injustices with, you know, the police brutality. So we didn't trust these people, and we didn't want to hear it because you're on that side and we're on this side. You don't care about us. So I have no reason to trust you or relate to you. But with my background, people know me. People can trust me. I can relate to the struggles from the street, and I know what it takes to get these people who are willing to help themselves, get them trained and get them in the trades and get them on a new path. So hopefully, with all these great people and organizations, now we got a lot of celebrities coming out and getting involved with reform, reentry, and all this stuff. You know, hopefully we can keep gaining momentum and make this happen, because this is going to have the potential to change a lot of lives. Not only mine, but a lot of other people.
Yeah, I think this country is very close to having some major positive changes around sentencing reform, around, you know, recidivism, ending recidivism, or, you know, making it a lot less common, and hopefully, you know, really scaling back the war on drugs. Looks like we could be getting close to getting some more decriminalization or legalization of marijuana on a national level, which would just change the whole game. So there's some pretty exciting things that I think could help a lot of people coming down the pike in the next year or two.
I hope so, because something's got to change. The way it's been going for these 40-some years, this war on drugs, it's not working. There's no empirical data based on these sentencing laws and stuff like that. It's you know, there's no, in most of these places, they're just warehousing. They're not rehabilitating. So, you know, hopefully they do make some serious changes soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to happen. Has to happen. But, Michael, I want to thank you just so much for coming on and sharing your story with the Felony Friday audience. The work you're doing is incredible. You know, the stuff you've been through, just, what was it, 16 months ago, you had that terrible thing happen to you in prison, and you've bounced back from that, haven't missed a beat. So yeah,
I can't let it get me down. I got to stay focused and keep pushing forward.
That's great advice, man. And, yeah, just thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Can I leave my social media if anybody wants to get in touch or follow?
Absolutely. Yeah, plug away. Sorry about that. Yeah, but give your social media or anything else you want to plug. Yeah.
Just anybody can follow me on Facebook at Michael Michael A Monsivais, last name Monsivais, or on Instagram at Chino_Mike909. And the Forbes story and the fam story are in my bio on the Instagram bio.
Well, I'll link to all that stuff on the show notes page too, and you guys check that out. And yeah, thanks again, Michael, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Michael Monsivais. Another great person. You know, I feel like I'm getting repetitive here with these shows at the end when I do my conclusion, my little wrap. People come up to me all the time. Well, they don't come up to me, actually. They send me a message on Facebook or an email or something like that. But people approach me all the time and they say, John, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you interview these people and you hear these stories. It's got to be so difficult to have to listen to these over and over every week, over and over again. You hear these terrible stories of people being wronged by the criminal justice system. And you know what? I mean, it's not terrible. It's fantastic. I love it. And I was just telling somebody this week in our Lions Pride, our private Facebook group, who messaged me about this. And, you know, they said they can't listen to every episode because it's too hard. It's too much to listen to it all the way through. And I think people are missing the point. People are missing the point of this show. The reason that I interview these individuals, the reason that I brought someone like Michael on this show, who has a fantastic story, who has overcome so much, who's given back so much, who is working right now, while he's still in a freaking halfway house, he's working to change the system that screwed him, change the system that injured him, change the system that burned the side of his body up and down and threw him in a little tiny cell until he healed, just hid him away from the rest of the prison population. The reason why I bring these people on, the reason why I'm so freaking passionate about this stuff is because this, not only will this help to change the system, but this is freaking motivation right here. And this isn't just motivation for people who've been in the criminal justice system and have experienced it. This is motivation for everybody. Because you know what? As you're going through your life, as you go through your 9-to-5 job, you go to your shitty job, you're living your shitty life. Maybe it's a great life, maybe it's not shitty, but a lot of people are living shitty lives out there. They wake up every day, they're not excited. They feel bad for themselves, they feel sorry for themselves. Maybe they're having trouble at work, trouble with their family, trouble with a friend, whatever it is. You look at stories like this. You look at the story last week with Judy Henderson, which she went through, 36 years in prison, convicted of murder, of a murder she did not commit. You look at that, you look at the attitude of Judy coming out on the other side, of Michael coming out on the other side. How can that not motivate you? How can that not make you jump out of bed in the morning and be thankful to have your goddamn freedom? Sorry, I'm a little bit excited today. I just think people, because I do hear this criticism of, that's not a criticism of this show, it's people saying, man, I don't know if I can listen to it. It's just so sad. Well, you know what? Maybe you need to listen to it because maybe you need some motivation in your life. And I'm sorry if I'm the one to bring that to you. I'm not singling anyone out individually. It might have sounded like that during the one part when I was bringing up the person who brought it up in the forum in our Lions of Liberty Pride Facebook group. I'm not. I hear this all the time. I hear this from the other co-hosts of this show bring it up to me. I hear it from everyone. So I'm not singling anybody out. It's just something that's been on my mind, and I had to get it out because I think it's. I think this show is impactful in so many ways. Not only can we change the criminal justice system, and I'm helping in a very small way to elevate these stories, but these stories can help people outside of the system to live better, more influential lives, more impactful lives, more passionate lives. So that's why I do this show. That's why I'm passionate about criminal justice reform, and that's why I'm passionate about giving individuals who have overcome so much this platform. So, stepping down off my soapbox, thank you so much for listening to today's show. I'm just going to say, please, if you want to support this show, support what we're doing here, go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty and check that out. Think about joining at $5 or $10 or $15 a month. Look at the different stuff you get for each level. You get bonus content starting at that $5 level. So check that out. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for everyone who supported this show along the way. And that's it, guys. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.